I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
Lately, enigmatic whispers had begun to slither through the palace corridors. With mere hours remaining before the grand ceremony, the shocking announcement arrived. Queen Camilla would be absent-stricken by a perilously rare illness. The public reeled in sorrow, while the press echoed their grief in a chorus of mournful headlines. Yet in the shadowed corners, her inner circle of advisors murmured. Otherwise, the medical files were a labyrinth of baffling inconsistencies, suggesting this might be nothing more than a carefully woven smokescreen. What made it truly ominous was Princess Anne's inadvertent eavesdropping during her oversight of security arrangements, a venomous whisper laced with malice, directed squarely at William, the heir destined to stand at history's blazing center. The icy resolve in Anne's gaze, as she slipped away from the scene, laid bare her dawning truth. Camilla's vanishing act was no mere misfortune, but the flint struck to kindle a coup d'etat. Would William glimpse the snare tightening around him before it snapped shut, or would the entire dynasty tumble into a tempest of shadows unlike any before? The grand hall gleamed under the radiant cascade of crystal chandeliers, yet the air within the palace hung heavy with unspoken tension. Mere hours remained until the pivotal ceremony that would thrust young heir William into the spotlight, drawing every camera lens and the fervent hopes of the realm toward him. But on the very cusp of this defining moment, a bombshell rippled across the front pages. Queen Camilla announced her absence on health grounds, a prolonged chest infection that demanded utter seclusion. This meticulously staged withdrawal laced with tear-streaked headlines had masterfully ensnared the public's sympathy. They mourned for their ailing queen, blind to the truth that beneath the flawless veil of this fabricated illness, a ruthless plot to unseat her had been set in motion. While the outside world dissected the medical bulletin, Princess Anne moved in quiet vigil over the security preparations in the East Wing. Far from the fragile facade she sometimes projected, Anne was renowned for her discretion and razor-sharp vigilance. She scrutinized every microphone cable beneath the podium, where William would soon stand, leaving no technical oversight unturned. It was in that hushed interlude that her ears caught an anomaly, a furtive whisper deliberately muffled, drifting from a shadowed alcove where Camilla's trusted retainer lingered. Though fleeting, the guard's triumphant, venomous tone struck Anne like a blade. The words seared into her memory. "Everything will be in place. He won't have the face to stand before the people anymore." He could only mean William. Anne's features remained a mask of cool composure, but within a frigid blaze of suspicion ignited. The Queen's absence was no coincidence, it was a harbinger. She retreated swiftly to her office, cloaked in absolute silence. There she covertly delved into the internal medical records, cross-referencing the chest infection. Claims against the health history revealed the brazen deceit. No trace of grave pathology, just a hastily scheduled routine checkup form. Most damningly, it bore no endorsement from the chief medical advisors, exposing a sloppy yet deliberate forgery. Anne saw it plainly. Queen Camilla wasn't ill. She was laying a trap. The alarm surged to a fever pitch. William's honor and the monarchy's fragile equilibrium teetered on the brink. Anne could delay no longer. At the stroke of midnight, she slipped into William's private study, evading prying eyes. He was immersed in his speech, his face etched with weariness, yet alight with quiet resolve. Anne wasted no words on preamble. She drew close, murmuring of the overheard malice, the doctored evidence, and her unshakable conviction of a conspiracy arrayed against him. William listened, and for the first time, the steady calm in his eyes fractured. It shifted in an instant from exhaustion to a steely gravity. He grasped that this was no petty intrigue, but a veiled existential threat. Staring into the void, his doubt forged into determination. He resolved to heighten his guard and pivot his strategy without delay. In that modest study beneath the flickering candlelight, the heir's silent counterstrike took root. Princess Anne's whispered warning had shredded the fragile veil of doubt, unveiling a razor-edged conspiracy lurking in wait. In the instant she departed, William's fatigue from the speech evaporated. In its place surged an iron resolve through his veins, supplanting youthful complacency with the primal survival instinct of a true leader. He knew any hesitation or delay could cost him everything. William's moves unfolded in shadow and utter silence. No grand declarations were needed, only knowing glances and resolute nods. First, an encrypted missive winged its way to the elite royal guard triple security around the ceremonial dais, with a special scrutiny on the technical and broadcast zones. The order masqueraded as final protocols for an international live televised event, deftly averting any stir or undue scrutiny. His most loyal men dissolved into phantoms. They scoured every inch of the platform, dissecting audio gear, microphones, and signal transmitters with forensic precision. This was no mere technical sweep. It was a hunt for sabotage, a quest to unearth any rogue recording device or covert broadcaster that might have been planted. From a distance, William watched, his eyes glinting with unrelenting suspicion, tracking the technicians' every twitchman he'd trusted implicitly just hours before. Parallel to fortifying the physical perimeter, William executed a bolder stroke. He summoned the Earl Advisor, a veteran of 3 reigns, to his private sanctum. No lengthy exposition required. A terse exchange and the sheaf of forged medical files sufficed. William tasked him with a clandestine probe into the gaps in Queen Camilla's schedule. He demanded the unvarnished truth. What had the Queen truly done? Whom had she met? Where had she ventured during her professed seclusion? It was a perilous, delicate mission, treading straight into the sanctum of the reigning Queen's power and fiercely guarded privacy. As William and his cadre operated covertly beneath the guise of routine safeguards beyond the palace gates, the smear campaign ignited. Dawn had barely crested when the capital's air thickened with the acrid tang of fresh newsprint. Tabloids, those usual peddlers of gossip and fluff, erupted in unison with credible yet vicious rumors. Bold, screaming headlines blasted a singular venom. William, the heir apparent, was woefully unfit to lead. Camilla's absence, far from a lamentable footnote, was twisted into a litmus test he'd spectacularly failed. The articles dripped with insinuation. The grand affair demanded the Queen's presence to steady the nation's pulse, and William's inability to harness the expectations or fill that void only exposed his greenness, his inexperience laid bare. Rumors ensnared him like a toxic web. The public, still pitying their beleaguered queen, now swiveled their skepticism toward him. Whispers swelled about the succession's legitimacy, his mettle to bear the crown in turbulent times. William skimmed the venomous prose. No longer did it prick with personal affront or raw fury. A chill detachment had seized his mind. He saw it for what it was, not idle scandal, but a meticulously orchestrated and bankrolled smear offensive. Every word, every phrase, every shadowy photo was positioned with lethal intent. The Queen's feigned illness, her retainer's sly murmur, the synchronized media blitz they wove into a crystalline mosaic in William's thoughts. He traced the puppet strings to their source. Camilla sought not mere withdrawal. She craved a power vacuum from her void, a smokescreen for an assault to obliterate his reputation. He rose from his chair, the weight of betrayal and media onslaught bearing down like an anvil. Pinned against the wall by his foe, encircled by his own people's doubt. Yet in that crucible, his resolve crested. Gazing through the window at the palace's deceptive hush, William knew to triumph in this war, he must do one thing: acknowledge the enemy's strike and steel himself to strike back. The smear barrage validated Anne's alert. Now the heir would prove his mettle. From the seclusion of her private chambers, where the public imagined Queen Camilla locked in a valiant battle against illness, she had transmuted her absence into a flawless lever of power. The ailment was mere facade. Behind it lurked a calculating mind plotting each move with surgical precision. Camilla was far from resting. Instead, she orchestrated an intricate campaign, deploying her web of loyal retainers and advisors as unquestionable pawns on the board. Her objective burned with crystalline clarity, not merely to humiliate William, but to shatter the faith his subjects held in him utterly. She had enlisted master audio forgers from beyond the palace walls. Their charge to craft a counterfeit recording, a voice eerily mimicking William's own, laced with barbs that scorned sacred traditions and derided the very devotees who exalted him. This fabricated audio was her secret arsenal. Camilla directed her most trusted guard, the one Anne had overheard, to execute the implantation. The scheme called for unleashing it through the ceremony's primary microphone array, precisely as William neared his oath or launched into his pivotal address. A killing blow. He would dissolve into national farce, branded a hypocrite, by the masses, his every scrap of support crumbling at the dais' base. While the plot churned with feverish secrecy, Princess Anne maintained her vigilant gaze. Her warning had spurred William to action, but she knew bolstering security alone fell short. Evidence was essential. Rather than confront head-on, she dissolved into an ethereal shadow, trailing Camilla's guards' every shift and quirk within the palace these past days. Anne's patience yielded its harvest at last. On the eve of the grand ceremony, she spied him in a clandestine maneuver backstage. He shunned the formal corridors, slinking instead through a seldom-trod maintenance passage, a small object concealed deftly in his vest pocket, his features taut with strain, his eyes darting like a hunted fox's. Anne held her distance. From afar, she marked his purposeful stride toward the central technical zone. In a blur of seconds, his hand brushed the backup microphone control box. As he melted away, Anne closed in, summoning a security operative loyal to William, one she'd quietly vetted. Together, they probed. At the sight, nothing screamed peril outright, but Anne's eye snagged on an anomalous connector, a compact device cunningly nested within the audio cabling's sheath. Though disassembly or dissection would have to wait, Anne grasped its essence. This was Camilla's linchpin. Its design and placement screamed a singular intent to hijack the official sound feed. The discovery was too vital to hoard. Anne bore word of the anomalous device straight to William. His sentiment had evolved beyond mere suspicion into a glacial affirmation of the Queen's depravity. The threat was no longer baseless gossip, but a primed explosive ticking on stage. Anne ventured a defensive ploy in hushed tones, perhaps postponing the rite or shifting venues. Yet William's stare gleamed with unprecedented steel. He perceived that evasion now would brand him frail in the enemy's eyes, fueling the whispers of his leadership's infancy. He refused to cower or parry passively. In that charged instant, a bold, perilous verdict crystallized. William met Anne's eyes, his visage, a portrait of battle-readied poise, heedless of the toll it might exact. He would not sidestep. He would lure the foe into the open. He would mount the podium as scripted, primed to confront any assault in the full glare of day. He yearned to ensnare Queen Camilla red-handed, transmuting her scheme into a public debacle before the nation's witness. He braced for the gale, convinced that truth alone could safeguard his honor and reclaim the realm's trust. Outside the palace, the air churned like an emotional tidal wave. Thousands had converged, their gazes locked on the resplendent dais. Though whispers of William's inexperience still lingered, like smoke, anticipation, loyalty, and hope held sway. Overhead, hundreds of studio spotlights blazed, transforming the stage into a nexus of power beneath the slate-gray sky of this historic dawn. William ascended the steps, his tall, poised frame instantly commandeering every lens. Clad in formal regalia that masked his inner tumult, a vigilant chill had supplanted his habitual confidence deep in his eyes. He knew this wasn't merely a podium, it was a minefield battlefield. With each measured stride, each nod to the dignitaries, William reined himself in with iron discipline. He wasn't just reciting lines, he was braced for catastrophe. In his mind's eye, the fabricated recording detonated with a thunderous boom, conjuring visions of pandemonium and reputational ruin. Yet that very peril forged his resolve sharper. He wagered all project unyielding poise come what may. Meanwhile, in the subterranean technical control room, shrouded in secrecy, Princess Anne held her vigil. No glittering gown for her. She opted for muted, practical attire that blended seamlessly with the gloom and tangle of machinery. She stood sentinel beside the primary audio feed monitor. Before William's entrance, Anne had quietly primed a trusted security technician, one she'd forewarned of the anomalous device to stand ready for an emergency signal cut. Her intervention demanded surgical timing. Too soon, and it would pass for a glitch. Too late, and disaster would unfold. The instant William's hand met the lectern, Anne spotted the unnatural flicker of a red light on her screen. It wasn't from his microphone, it was the activation pulse from Camilla's planted saboteur. The assault had launched. The climax unfolded in a heartbeat. As the rogue data surged toward the main sound system, Anne issued her silent command, a crisp nod. The technician slammed the kill switch. A near imperceptible hush descended. The counterfeit audio was throttled in its cradle. The primary system emitted only a faint click, swallowed instantly by the crowd's murmur and the wind's sigh. Atop the dais, William sensed that fleeting hitch. He knew Camilla had struck, and that Anne had just parried a mortal blow. Unfazed, he pressed on with his address, his voice booming with resonant conviction as if the world hadn't trembled. But the scheme didn't end there. As all eyes riveted on William's oration, an odd tableau played out in the desolate backstage shadows. Camilla's loyal guard, the planter himself, realized the signal hadn't broadcast. The plan had crumbled. Panic clawed at him. He scrambled to enact the contingency flee and eradicate any lingering traces. He bolted toward the technical zone, desperate to excise the device's physical remnants. But William's security detail, pre-alerted and primed, had sealed every ingress and egress. In his frantic bid for a secondary escape hatch, he was cornered, the small box cradling the sabotage's core still clutched in his fist. The capture unfolded in shadows beyond any camera's reach, but a terse whisper crackled through William's earpiece. "Big fish hooked." William flawlessly concluded his speech. He evoked unity, the horizon ahead, and faith in enduring legacies. His timbre carried the gravity of conviction, successfully scattering the storm clouds of scandal. Thousands erupted in fervent applause, their trust in the air reforged. Yet as the footlights dimmed and he descended, the fire in William's breast had shifted from wary ember to scorching vendetta against Camilla. He'd evaded the snare, but the true fray was only dawning. Now came the reckoning wheeled, the tangible proof and damning testimony to flip the board. Moments after William's triumphant address concluded, he and Anne withdrew into a discreet conference chamber deep within the palace. The elation of victory on the dais had faded, yielding to the icy focus of an inquest. They understood that thwarting the plot was merely half the battle. The remainder lay in toppling the mastermind. William and Anne synergized with uncanny precision. Anne supplied the keen insights and granular details on the guard's conduct, while William wielded the authority and orchestration for an interrogation that brooked no denial. Camilla's trusted retainer, caught red-handed with the counterfeit device in his grasp, had been hustled to a high-security isolation cell. Under the psychological vice, William adroitly contrived not brute coercion, but utter solitude, laced with promises of clemency for cooperation, the man's defiance began to fracture. Overwhelmed by terror and despair, the guard, once enslaved by blind fealty to the Queen, succumbed at last. He spilled the full chronicle Camilla's feigned affliction, the enlistment of audio artisans to forge the damning clip of William reviling sacred customs and the precise directives for the device's trigger. Most crucially, he surrendered a duplicate of a recording bearing Camilla's own command. The Queen's voice, though deliberately pitch-shifted, retained an unmistakable timbre of imperious venom. Its chilling finale rang out crystalline, "It's time for him to be humiliated before the entire nation." The evidence was ironclad. Now came the public reckoning. William swiftly convened the Privy Council, the realm's supreme conclave of inner-circle members and confidants, where the kingdom's gravest edicts were forged. As William marshaled his forces, Camilla made her entrance timed with theatrical flair. She swept into the chamber in stark antithesis to the press's embroidered portrait of frailty, porcelain skin aglow raiment of regal splendor, and above all, an aura of terrifying poise and command. The Queen had primed herself for the denouement, a psychological counterstrike. As William laid out the anomaly at the dais, Camilla interjected with disdainful hauteur. She parried with claims of slander. Her voice brimmed with feigned outrage. Before the assembly, she proclaimed with vehement conviction that it was all a fabrication by William and Anne, a perfidious ploy to fracture the monarchy, exploiting her convalescence to excise a rival and seize power in unseemly haste. Camilla's defense was so vehement and artful that it electrified the room into a cauldron of tension. The rift escalated instantaneously. The Privy Council cleaved into stark factions. One, the elder traditionalists, bribed or still cowed by Camilla's entrenched dominion, rallied to the Queen, impugning William's motives. They interrogated the propriety of his probing a reigning monarch amid her recuperation. The opposing cadre, encompassing Anne and the advisors who had scented the anomalies in the timeline, aligned with William, demanding irrefutable proof. William absorbed it all, his countenance a bastion of improbable serenity. He knew this crux demanded not verbal jousting, but annihilation by verity. He bided until the tumult ebbed, every gaze riveted upon him, awaiting his ultimate rebuttal. After a protracted silence, William methodically placed two artifacts upon the table, the guard's exhaustive deposition transcript and a compact digital recorder. That was when he unleashed the truth. He depressed the button. Camilla's voice, glacial and scheming, filled the chamber with crystalline clarity. The entire directive unfolded from the synthetic audio's genesis to the merciless coda, "It's time for him to be humiliated before the entire nation." That irrefutable timbre wrought a visceral shockwave through the room. All froze. Camilla's partisans pivoted in a heartbeat, from fury to bewilderment and dread. The assembly quaked. Camilla, ever the paragon of composure, could no longer veil the inexorable. Her visage blanched in an instant, lips compressed into muteness. Her eyes, straining for haughty defiance, betrayed raw horror as her own words turned traitor. The board had flipped. No artifice could salvage her honor or station now. In the wake of that seismic silence, the Privy Council could no longer sustain its schism. The evidence was too overwhelming. Queen Camilla's voice, distilled into a mere snippet of recording, had delivered a mortal strike, obliterating every prior evasion. Truth encapsulated in that audio, and the traitor's confession had become an unyielding, merciless blade. The reckoning unfolded with swift, solemn decorum, not vengeful spite, but to uphold the law and the monarchy's equilibrium. The verdict crystallized within hours. Camilla was stripped of all political and ceremonial authority. Her title lingered a hollow shell bereft of substance. She was confined to an isolated wing of the palace, barred from media contact or external dignitaries. For Camilla, the corporeal penalty paled beside the evisceration of her prestige. The queen, ever starved for dominion and adoration, now beheld her meticulously erected edifice dissolve into ether. Bitterness roiled within her, not remorse for her sins, but anguish over a scheme deemed flawless now undone. Isolation cloaked her more oppressively than any iron bars, for she knew even her erstwhile allies had recoiled in horror from the unveiled malice. Concurrently, the Queen's devoted guard, the plot's direct executor, faced public trial. This spectacle was imperative to affirm the monarchy's transparency to the realm. The case blazed across every outlet, not solely for its operatic intrigue, but for the equity of its judgment. Justice was not merely dispensed behind sealed doors, it was paraded unsparingly in the full glare of day. In stark counterpoint to that downfall, William emerged tempered air forged in fire. He had not only aced the pivotal rite, but surmounted a cabal bent on annihilating his legacy. His decisive covert maneuvers, probing, amassing proof, confronting Camilla head-on, had evinced a command surpassing all prognostication. The press, once awash in calumny, now extolled him in lavish paeans, the steadfast heir, the sagacious future king, emblem of royal rectitude. The populace's faith in this nascent era of stewardship was not merely reinstated, but buttressed more impregnably than ever. At William's flank, Princess Anne lingered in the penumbra, shunning the journalist's glare. She craved no footlights, her sole desire truth and justice unassailably enshrined. Yet the inner circle and loyal courtiers discerned her pivotal role. She was hailed as the silent sentinel, her acuity and unswerving fealty having spared the crown from tumult. Anne received these accolades with profound humility, her gaze serene, yet laced with a veiled pride in verity's triumph. As twilight descended, a modest yet resonant rite convened. William resplendent in his victory garb, and Anne in understated yet graceful attire, advanced side by side onto the palace's grand balcony. It marked their first public adjacency since Resolution's dawn. Below, thousands had amassed. No longer did they acclaim mere pomp. Their fervor stemmed from renewed conviction. Crystal chandeliers from the great hall spilled their luster, mingling with the sunset's blaze to enshroud the pair in a warm nimbus. William raised his hand in salute, not arrogance, but a vow of candor and equity. Anne, steadfast beside him, embodied the indomitable primacy of fact. This tableau etched itself as a potent icon, justice vanquishing shadow, the new reign's bedrock solidity. In that self-same instant within her sequestered enclave, Camilla stood motionless before a vast casement. Through the glass she traced the throng's hazy silhouettes, exulting beneath the palace illuminations. The chasm between her and William's solitude's abyss, yawning against glory's blaze, had become an impassable gulf. Upon Camilla's countenance, no remnant of wrath or terror lingered, only consummate bitterness. She had forfeited all divested not just of sway, but of reverence. She had elected intrigue and obscurity, and fate had slammed shut the portal to splendor forevermore. What do you make of the stark opposition between light and shadow in that closing tableau, the instant William and Anne bask beneath the triumphant glow set against the solitary silhouette of Queen Camilla, framed in her window? Did it stir in you a surge of fulfillment, or perhaps a faint pang of sorrow for her downfall? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.